Welcome back to another episode of the EC2 Spot Show with Nick and Chad. Kunal, you're here. We're on Launchpad. We're in Vegas. All right, so we're not in the San Francisco studio. We're here on the expo floor in the Venetian. But we are still talking about Spot, to my knowledge, unless you're wearing the wrong shirt. So, lots of new stuff in Spot. And we're going to get into it in just a moment. But first, let's talk about everyone who's up here if they haven't seen our show. So first, hi, I'm Nick Walsh. I'm a technical evangelist at Amazon Web Services.
And I'm Chad Schmutzer. I'm a principal developer advocate for the EC2 Spot team.
And I'm Kunal Batra. I'm a senior technical evangelist here at AWS. And I'm really excited about this session because I feel like this is the ultimate cheat code to save a little money, right? So let's tell our Twitch audience first, what is Spot?
Yep. So Spot is basically access to our spare capacity with savings up to 90% off of the on-demand price.
90%?
Yep, up to 90% off. Yep.
So how does this work? It sounds like snake oil, right? Like we just save money for free? What? Come on.
It sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you put a request in, can I get access to your spare capacity? If we have it, we give it to you. If at any point we need that spare capacity back, we give you a 2-minute notice. We're going to take that capacity back, but we have plenty of ways to help you mitigate that and help you find other spare capacity to use.
Yeah, so as a developer, do I need to change anything to take advantage of these 90% savings?
Right. Typically, no. You can simply use Spot just like you would use on-demand. If you want to take advantage of the interruption notice, you can basically code for that. We provide an interruption notice both in the EC2 metadata service as well as CloudWatch events. You can code for that. However, what we've done is we've worked very hard to integrate with other services and applications so that they can bake in the ability to capture that notice and handle all of it for you gracefully.
And when we talk about these termination notices, if you're honestly coding for graceful failure, these are probably things that may already exist in your code, so you may not even be making very large changes here. And again, you get events that will actually trigger and give you a warning minutes in advance before a termination will occur, so that you can handle that graceful handoff of state to maybe S3, what have you, and Spot will then automatically fail over to a new instance.
Right. Yeah, so, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so we have things like Autoscaling Groups, EC2 Autoscaling Groups that will say, hey, if I lose a Spot instance here, I can replace it with another one from another pool, and then you can carry on with your work.
And so the one question that everyone asks when they hear about Spot is like, are these spare capacity? Is this like a budget yesteryear instance that my stuff is running on? Is that the case, or is it actually the same as the other instances?
It's the exact same capacity that we use for on-demand. All you're doing is paying for it differently. And I can tell you we have a lot of it out there. I just presented with Hulu yesterday, who showcased how they were able to spin up 1.6 million virtual CPUs in our spare capacity to do some load testing.
It's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know we'll get into it in a bit, but with these really deep savings, you may be running your workload on an instance that's otherwise much more powerful and would cost a lot more on demand, but may cost less than the traditional instance you would run it on. And again, you'll see that same or even better performance on some of these instances running on Spot as a result of this.
Absolutely.
I can't wait any longer. So where can we use Spot for, right? Run us down that list, so I'm excited.
Let's go through this. So if you are doing batch processing or genomics processing, I want to talk about how Spot was integrated into the AWS Batch service. AWS Batch is a batch processing service. You simply tell it how many jobs you have to run, how to run those jobs, and Batch does the rest. And so what we did recently was we tightly integrated Spot into Batch so that Batch can simply spin up and access that spare capacity with Spot instances powering the Batch jobs. It runs the jobs for you. When those jobs are finished, it shuts off the capacity and handles it all for you gracefully.
I mean, I don't want to do too much of a spoiler here, but we're going to talk a lot about the ways that Spot has integrated with many, many services. I think to give people who may not have used Spot in the past more of an appreciation for how powerful these launches are, maybe we could talk to talk to how users would use Spot with EC2 in the past, which again, EC2 may underpin a lot of the other services, but before these integrations are available, developers would potentially have to retrofit their application to then leverage it. A lot of these announcements are going to be enabling developers and meeting them where they are to be able to now unlock the power of Spot. So Batch is just the first of many examples, right?
Yep, that's very key. So what we really wanted to do this last year was to focus on putting Spot into the applications that our customers are using. They're saying, hey, I have these workloads, I have these applications, I want to save money, I want to use Spot in these, and so we've spent time integrating Spot directly into these environments.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about batch processing, but what do we have in the web and application space? Anything there?
Right, so in web and application, Elastic Beanstalk, for those of you that want a fully managed environment where you can say, here's my application, here's what I need to run my application, go spin up the auto-scaling group for me, go spin up the load balancer, attach everything for me, deploy my application. The Elastic Beanstalk service is now integrated with Spot natively. So you can say, hey Beanstalk, not only do I want to spin up my application, but I want to save money at the same time and I want to scale. And you can use Spot instances natively in Beanstalk now.
So are these for new applications for Elastic Beanstalk? Can you upgrade your existing environments to take advantage of Spot as well?
You absolutely can. All you need to do is check a box that says, please do a percentage of Spot with on-demand in my environment, or go pure Spot. And Beanstalk will actually distribute the Spot instances across availability zones to have that high availability for you as well.
That's great.
So the story that's coming out here to me is that customers no longer have to choose between using a tool chain that enables them to deploy easily like Beanstalk, or using cost savings through EC2 Spot. Now we're bridging the two worlds together and they can actually get the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I want to bridge into EC2 Autoscaling Groups. Now, I mentioned it earlier. What we did was, we basically improved the ability to launch Spot instances inside of an EC2 Autoscaling Group. And we did that in two ways. The first was to bring a new strategy for allocation, which is called the Capacity Optimized Allocation Strategy, which means the Autoscaling Group can actively go out and find the deepest pools of spare capacity and launch instances there for you automatically. The second thing we did, which was to encourage flexibility to get access to that spare capacity, was to launch something called weights. This means you can now tell the Autoscaling Group how much does each instance contribute to my overall target capacity. That way you can say, I can have an instance that has 4 CPUs and an instance that has 2, and I need a total of 8. And he can either give you 2 of one or 4 of the other, or mix and match to get you the total weight that you asked for.
So that's really cool. With respect to the first one that you mentioned, could you just repeat what that one was again? Because I had a thought and I'm blanking on it. But
right, it's called EC2 Autoscaling Groups with the Mixed Instances Policy.
Right. So yeah, so the thought I had was that, like, with respect to Spot, a lot of people sometimes are fearful about termination, and by being able to find the pool that has the most spare capacity available, you minimize the risk of that termination.
Right.
And if folks actually want to see in real time the actual termination rates for different regions and different instance types, we actually have a page on EC2 Spot that shows that to you, so you can see firsthand exactly what that'll be.
It's called the Spot Instance Advisor. Check it out. You will see that globally, less than 5% of all running Spot instances over the last 5 months were interrupted by us. So it's actually a very low interruption rate across the board.
So with the mixed instances that you just spoke about, obviously you can use Spot with that. Can you use other regular instances just for that availability plus the cost performance with Spot?
You can. In a mixed instances policy autoscaling group, you can say, I would like a baseline amount of on-demand, and then I would like to scale with a ratio of Spot and on-demand, everything above that. So you can have a mode where you're like keeping the lights on with on-demand, and then you're saving money by scaling with Spot on everything above that.
So I'm digging back into the script from one of our shows, but a really common pattern for some sort of cyclical workload would be, let's say your organization has some sort of daily fluctuation and you have a non-zero minimum. You may have invested in RIs, for example, right?
Yep.
You may use RIs up to the minimum of that, low tide from your workload, and then use Spot to scale out all on top of that, so you get the cost savings of RI and you guarantee that the lights are on, and then you scale up to variable amount of traffic through Spot.
Beautiful way to work. You can prioritize the on-demand instances in the list. They can focus on your RIs or your savings plans, and then you can save money both sides of the house, on that side with the on-demand side as well as with the Spot side.
Wonderful. So Beanstalk got a bit of attention, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring us into machine learning. What do you have for us there, Chad?
Absolutely. So with machine learning, it's an incredibly popular use case for Spot instances, right? You need massive amounts of compute, massive amounts of memory, oftentimes some GPUs. Spot instances are available with all those different instance types. However, SageMaker, which is a managed machine learning platform that AWS provides, recently integrated with Spot as well. They are now providing a managed Spot training platform just through SageMaker. And the beauty is that SageMaker will actually handle any potential Spot interruptions for you during the training process and checkpoint that training for you to S3. When the Spot capacity returns, SageMaker will relaunch your job and finish it up for you in a timely fashion.
So this is something I've worked with firsthand with some customers. They're like, I love SageMaker. It helps training on a distributed cluster super easy. There's a one.fit method. It's wonderful, right?
Yep.
But then by default in SageMaker, you used to only be able to have access to on-demand.
Right. So this way you can save up to 90% in your SageMaker Spot training. It's beautiful, it handles it all for you gracefully. Customers are really loving it.
No, that's awesome. You just answered my questions right there. 90% savings, graceful interruptions, you don't have to do anything as a developer.
Yep.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yep.
I think when it comes to machine learning, this is also super, super applicable, right? Because oftentimes machine learning training processes take a very long period of time, right? And so if you've coded to have graceful failover through Spot, it's not adding all that much in the grand scheme of your duration of your training. Oftentimes training happens overnight or long periods of time, maybe you're running a bunch concurrently. Spot just stands to save customers so much money. So if you're already looking or you're using SageMaker, please, please, please look into EC2 Spot for that. I believe we launched that at the New York Summit this year?
Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. So moving on from machine learning, taking a step back from the abstraction level here, we're talking a bit about containers. We've had a lot of container-oriented launches here at reInvent.
We have.
But how does EC2 Spot tie into all of that?
Right, so first of all, Spot and containers are a very natural fit, right? Containers are already ephemeral, often stateless. They can come and go as necessary. So you think about combining that with the ephemeral nature of Spot instances, it's a very natural fit. Customers were already running containers at scale on Spot. We really want to make that an easier process for everybody. So the first thing that just actually announced yesterday, I believe, is something called ECS capacity providers. ECS made it much easier to use Spot in the ECS environment. What you can do is you can basically say, I have an EC2 Autoscaling Group, it's full of Spot instances, please use it as a capacity provider for my ECS cluster, and ECS will figure out how to automatically place tasks onto your Spot instances directly and have it scale up and scale down as you need.
Yeah. Capacity providers is a really dense topic, but I think really broadly, the ability to think application first and have capacity providers and ECS handle the underlying infrastructure, like Spot capacity, is really valuable. So customers now are removing another layer of abstraction of managing and using Spot, and capacity providers just make that easier all around to use.
Absolutely, and so we can say, I want to have a ratio of on-demand and Spot in my ECS environment,
right.
And ECS is now knowledgeable and say, I understand you want 50% of your cluster on Spot and 50% on-demand, and it will figure out where to deploy your tasks automatically.
Great.
Yep.
Dovetailing right off of that one, I know released right along the same time was Fargate Spot.
Right.
So
right.
why is everyone so excited about that one?
Everybody's excited about Fargate Spot, and I did a session about this on Tuesday, about the launch of Fargate Spot. It's all about serverless, right? It's about saying, I want to run my containers, but I don't want to manage the underlying infrastructure. I don't even want to manage anything about it. Here's my container image. Here's how much compute and memory I need. Go run it for me in the cloud. And what we did was customers were saying, hey, I want to run my containers on spare capacity just like I can run my EC2 instances on spare capacity. Right. So we launched Fargate Spot. It allows you to say, hey, Fargate, here's a capacity provider for Spot. It's spare capacity. Go launch my containers and run it there. Same great resources. I get a 2-minute interruption notice. It's either a SIG term or a CloudWatch event. I can code against it if I want to. Otherwise, ECS with Fargate Spot will handle it all for you.
So this sounds amazing.
Yep.
Now, what's preventing your customers from using Spot for everything? Are there challenges with Spot where they need a mix of both, or walk us through that?
So the one case I would say where you should not use Spot is something that is very data persistent. A database, for example. If you're running a database, I don't care if it's on a container or running it standalone on EC2, that's not a place where Spot belongs. However, Spot belongs in most other places, and this is really what this is about.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, so I think we have one more topic when it comes to containers. I'm not going to let you slide on this one. It's the K word, it's Kubernetes.
Yep.
How does Node Termination Handler, which is the new launch from EC2 Spot, how is that playing with Kubernetes, and how does that make lives easier for people that are deploying workloads onto Kubernetes?
Yep, so we have a lot of customers running Kubernetes. They're using it both natively on EC2, and they're also using EKS, which uses EC2. However, they're using Spot. They want to use Spot. So what we did was release an open source tool called the Node Termination Handler, which means you can now say, hey, Kubernetes, I'm going to run on Spot. I want you to watch for that interruption notice. When it appears, please gracefully drain my containers off of the instance that it's running on. It's been a wildly popular plugin.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before, like as long as you can handle graceful failover, then you're good. And now with the launch for the termination handler for Kubernetes, we're making it even easier for people to implement that.
Absolutely.
So an obvious, obvious to see why this has been immensely popular with folks.
Yep.
So, all right, we've just covered so many different integrations for EC2 Spot, but we've got a few moments left. would it be bad if I asked you to show us some of them?
Not at all.
Demo time.
Demo time.
Demo.
All right.
Demo.
All right. Let's see what you've got for us.
All right, I'm going to do an AWS Batch demo. Let me make sure my fonts are large enough. I want to show you just how easy it is to use Spot in your managed batch environment. So I am now in the Batch console, right? This is AWS Batch. It's a fully managed batch service. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down in here to my compute environments. I'm going to create a compute environment that is targeted at getting access to spare compute capacity for up to 90% off. So how do we do this? I'm going to create a compute environment. I want to say it's a managed compute environment. I'm going to call it Launchpad because that's where we are. I'm going to use a service role that is baked in here for me, or it will create a new one if I need to. Now, as I scroll down, here we go. We see Spot. All I need to do is click on Spot and say, please batch, use Spot for my compute environment. Now, here's where we get really fancy and neat. I can do two things. I can say, what are the allowed instance types you can use batch? And I can just say optimal, and batch is going to look at my jobs, and it's going to say, how much memory are you asking for? How much CPU are you asking for? I'm going to go find the most optimal instances to use for your jobs, right? Now, coupling this with something called an allocation strategy, which is a new thing with batch. We have an allocation strategy called the Spot Capacity Optimized Allocation Strategy. So what this means is batch is not only going to find the most optimal instances from a performance perspective, it's going to find the most available Spot instances from a capacity perspective. This translates loosely into the most available pools of capacity that we have so you can get your jobs done. Make sense? Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just amazed that we're not just giving you a hub to integrate on and for you to figure out the rest with some advice and some well wishes. We're really helping you ride off into the sunset with everything along the way. So yeah, looks really great.
Yep, so let's go ahead and spin up. I'm going to ask for a minimum number of 16 virtual CPUs, a desired amount of 16, and a maximum of 256. This is going to allow batch to scale up and scale down between 16 virtual CPUs and 256 to get my jobs done. I'm going to simply choose my virtual private cloud here. Key with Spot, right, is to let the application look into as many pools of capacity as it can. By telling it to look in as many availability zones as it can, it's going to unlock additional pools of spare capacity. That's all there is to it. I'm going to say create. I exceeded a quota here. Let's back down here a little bit here on my number of instance pools that I'm going to look in. Sorry about that.
Chad has just given so many demos of this to so many excited people that he's exceeding his account limit.
I really am. So let's just back this down here so I can spin this up for you here gracefully. I seem to have some sort of quota that I'm not sure what's going on here.
It's all good. So again, this is a look at AWS Batch, right? So Batch, now powered under the hood by EC2 Spot spare capacity. We've mentioned a lot of different ways to be able to leverage this. Maybe we'll give it another moment to see if we can figure out this bug. Otherwise, maybe we can take a look at what that experience looks like for some of the other services.
Yep, let's flip over to Beanstalk. I want to show you how easy it is to do this in Beanstalk. So
yeah. Beauty Live demos, chat.
Oh yeah, I have thick skin here. All right.
You got a lot of practice on the show, right? So
yes, absolutely. So let's take a look at what this looks like in Beanstalk. I am now in the Elastic Beanstalk service. If I could click on create a new application, it's really quite easy to do here. So let me head back here to the main section here. I'm going to call this Launchpad 2. There really isn't much to do here when it comes to creating a new environment to run on Spot. I can simply walk through this process here. So I'm going to do a web server environment. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click Launchpad environment, head down here. Under configure more options, actually let me click my platform first. Under configure more options, this is where I can get into the great stuff. See right here at the top where it says single instance using Spot, high availability using Spot and on demand. I can tell Beanstalk, I want you to automatically combine Spot and on demand in my web tier, in my web application environment, and it's going to simply figure it all out. Here in the capacity section, if I click on modify, you can see that it's going to take care of all of this for me. It's going to here, if I wanted to have a baseline amount of on demand, I could set that up here. Everything above the baseline I can scale with a ratio of on demand and Spot, and it handles it all for me automatically.
Wonderful. So, I think we're running out of time to show any more demos, but what's really apparent to me is that we're helping to bring Spot to customers where they're already developing. Notice we didn't go into a dedicated Spot console.
Yep.
We went into the existing services customers are already using, like Batch, like Beanstalk, and beyond. And so if you're used to dealing with those menus to deploy your applications or manage them, sometimes it's as small as just checking another box to use Spot and access all of those savings.
Yep, if there's something missing, you want to use Spot in your application, reach out to me, let me know. We want to hear your feedback.
Wonderful. Well, Chad, it's been a blast. I know there have been so many EC2 Spot releases or Spot releases this week. This is just a flavor of them, or just a bit of them. There have been some deep dives and sessions, other Launchpad sessions as well, folks can check out. But that's it for us here on the desk. We're going to be throwing it back over to This Is My Architecture. Stick around, and we'll be back soon. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.